And the final reason your calorie deficit isn't working is that your metabolism has slowed down. What's going on YouTube, it's Jason, and today we're going to be discussing why your calorie deficit isn't working. Now, you go on social media and there is so much information out there about weight loss, and pretty much every fitness influencer and coach worth their money talks about being in a calorie deficit and how important it is to lose body fat. By this stage, for most of us, this isn't rocket science. Most of us know that in order to lose weight, we need to be in a calorie deficit. Yet for some reason, when we go to put this into practice, most of us don't see the results we want to see. And there are 5 main reasons for this. The first reason is that you don't track your calories. I always tell my clients it is very difficult to change that which you can't track. And for most people, they're just playing a guessing game, putting their finger in the air, thinking they're round about this calorie number, and then just hoping for the best. But truth be told, in order to not track and guesstimate and still see results, you need to be really good at what you're doing, i.e. you need to have a sound understanding of nutrition, you need to understand your body and know how many calories you burn on a day-to-day basis. It is a skill that you build over time, and if you haven't got the experience, the vast majority of people are not going to see results this way. And while we're here, I just want to clear up a myth that stops a lot of people tracking calories and therefore making progress. And it's this idea that tracking calories is extreme, and if you do so, you are at high risk of developing an eating disorder. But I always tell my clients, it's no different to you thinking that drinking a glass of alcohol makes you an alcoholic. We know that it doesn't, and the vast majority of people are going to drink alcohol and have no issues. Now, of course, if someone is going through a rough patch in life and then they hit the bottle, that person is more likely to become alcohol dependent and eventually become an alcoholic. But it's not because of the alcohol, it's because they were going through a rough patch. And it's no different with those that develop eating disorders with tracking their calories. Often there is a trigger in their life that is going on in the background, and then the calories are the things that tip them over the edge. But for the vast majority of people, in my experience, that track calories and don't have any life situations happening, anything major, most of them just sail through just fine. Point number 2, and this is kind of linked to point number 1, but you don't know your maintenance calories. The vast majority of people, in my experience, are winging their maintenance, thinking men need 2,500 calories and women need 2,000. And while this is a good guide, I explained in my recent video why this can vary from person to person and the kind of factors that influence your maintenance, so definitely check it out. But ultimately, if you don't know your maintenance calories, how on earth can you create a deficit? Or how will you know if you're not creating a deficit? Again, it's all guesswork. Point number 3, and this might ruffle a few feathers, but are you actually in a calorie deficit? One of the most common scenarios I get as a coach is a client coming to me and saying something like, I can't lose any more weight, but I'm only eating 800 or 1,000 calories. I don't know what's wrong. And of course, I want to encourage them and not belittle them. So we start coaching, and what I get them to do is log their food and take photos of their food. At the end of the week, I get them to guesstimate how many calories they think they've consumed, and I compare that with my notes. Once we've determined the numbers, I then get them to weigh themselves, and in most cases, people have gained weight. And suddenly, without me telling them, they get their eureka moment. That what they thought was 800 calories is actually more like 1,800 to 2,000 calories. And that explains the reason why they've not been losing weight. Be confident about your calories. If you think you're in a deficit, make sure that you are actually in a deficit. And if you are, this is going to reflect on the scale. Now, let me clear something up about weighing scales. Weighing scales are not the be all and end all when it comes to losing weight. But you cannot argue with trends. I always explain to my clients that in a month, you are going to get one weighing result that doesn't make sense. You can do everything right from a nutrition and training perspective, and you weigh yourself at the end of the week. You might be bloated, you might be on your period, you might have had more carbs, more salt. Your water weight's going to be up, and your weight doesn't reflect your hard work. But if you go for week 2, week 3, and week 4, and your weight is still up, that is your body telling you something, because that's then a trend. If your weight is not budging over 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you need to change something, otherwise next week's result is going to be exactly the same. So don't worship the weighing scales or knee-jerk and panic when you see one bad result, but use your trends to determine whether or not you are actually in a calorie deficit, because if you are, over time, your weight should be trending downwards. Reason number 4, why you may be in a calorie deficit and not losing weight, is because you are not accountable. Going back to this topic of subjective and objective ways of thinking, a lot of people are adamant they're in a calorie deficit, but 1 month goes by and they haven't lost any weight. You say you're consuming 800 calories. Who's verifying that? You say that you've never skipped a session and you train at least 3 hours a week. Again, who's verifying that? I always explain to clients that the reason you have a boss at work is not because you can't do your job or because you can't be left unsupervised, but they want to make sure that you are objectively doing what you say you'll do and you are objectively not dropping the ball. They realize that left to people's own devices, people will start rocking up late to work, taking longer lunches, calling in sick, and missing their deadlines. And over time, this could have a drastic impact on the business. And it's that accountability, keeping you honest, that ensures that you continue to improve and that the business grows. And it's no different to your fitness journey. If you've encountered a bump in the road and you're not making progress, again, is it based on subjective thinking? I think I'm in a calorie deficit, I think I'm doing enough steps, or is it based on objective feedback? Is someone else scrutinizing your journey and seeing where perhaps you're dropping the ball? And the final reason your calorie deficit isn't working is that your metabolism has slowed down. When you've been dieting for a while on a certain amount of calories and you've lost weight, your metabolism eventually adapts to your new weight, and that's because our bodies are built for survival. If your body continued to burn calories at the same level that it did at your old weight, you could essentially die and starve to death, and it can't let that happen. And this is why we get what people describe as metabolic slowdown. But I wanted to make one thing clear, because people use this reason as a reason they're not losing weight far too often. It doesn't happen as often as you may think. Respectfully, if any of the 4 points I've listed apply to your journey, I would almost ignore this 5th point because it's probably not metabolic slowdown. In order for this point to apply, you should have been losing weight consistently week to week and then experienced a slowdown. Let's say, for example, a person is losing weight every single week for 10 weeks, and then week 11, 12, and 13, their weight plateaus. If they're doing the same things they've been doing in the first 10 weeks when they lost weight and now their weight has slowed down, I would begin to explore metabolic slowdown. But if someone is not losing weight for 3 weeks and then gains a bit and then loses a bit and then goes, oh, my metabolism may have slowed down, were you seeing consistent results over time? If you weren't, it's probably not metabolic slowdown. So that's everything. I've been training myself for almost 20 years, and so I've shared some of these sentiments. I've also been a coach for almost 10 years, and by far, these 5 reasons are the most common reasons why people's calorie deficits don't work. But when you consider each of the 5 points I've raised, there are 2 main themes. The first is that you are either not in a calorie deficit to begin with, or you were in a calorie deficit before, but your maintenance calories have since changed, i.e. point number 5, and you are no longer in a calorie deficit. It is almost impossible, yes, almost impossible according to science, to be in a genuine calorie deficit and over time lose no weight. So bear that in mind. If you're weighing yourself week to week and you're not seeing results and you're confident you're in a deficit, I'd get a second opinion. If you are someone who's struggling with weight loss and you're just starting out, or you've been on this journey for a while, were seeing results but have since plateaued, and you would like to get things kick-started again, click the link in the description below for more information about coaching. Hope you found that video helpful and informative. Don't forget to like this video if you did. Comment below for the algorithm. Let me know your struggles with a calorie deficit and where perhaps you've had bumps in the road on your weight loss journey. I can definitely relate. Please subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.